Hi, everyone. The month of November is over today, and we are done with our Movember interviews and our celebration of International Men's Day. And I wanted to do a quick recap and talk a little bit about what I learned. This may not be the most smooth ride we take over the course of the next few minutes, but I want to talk about why this was important. It was very eye-opening, it was very humbling, and quite frankly, I learned a whole lot, not just about these really cool guys, but about myself, about society, and about the urgent need that there is for us to have these conversations. Um, so I'll just start by saying that I found this far more challenging than I anticipated. I didn't expect it to be as hard as it was. I know and love many of the men I talk to, and yet it was still really difficult for me to go deep with them in the same way that I go deep with the women in my life. Maybe it's because we don't culturally see men in vulnerable conversation. Maybe it's because I was uncomfortable with that. I don't know. But it did make me realize how essential these conversations are. If I found asking the questions difficult, I can only imagine how stressful or concerning or hard it was for men to answer them. So, first, I want to just be really aware and grateful for the 17 men who said yes to these conversations. You were brave, you were honest, you were willing to explore these topics with me. And I'm so, so grateful to each and every one of you. And I'm grateful to Tanya and Freed, who introduced me to Alan, Ryan, and Mike. Without those introductions, I wouldn't have gotten to talk to these great guys and really learn to admire and respect them. So let's go back a minute. In March, I interviewed 32 women, and I could have interviewed 60 women. I asked 34 women, 2 turned me down, and I actually picked up extras along the way without even asking. I could have interviewed 60 women because if I had sent a call out for 60 women, I think 60 women would have shown up. I asked over 50 men that I know personally to do these interviews, and I got 14 that showed up. The other 3 were guys that I was introduced to by someone else. 2 of these guys were complete strangers on TikTok. So of the 14 that showed up. I am surprised. A few men initially agreed and then just ghosted me. A couple guys came to me and said, "This is not my jam and I don't think I want to do this." And I totally respect that. But a large number of men that I know just never responded to my request, just ignored it. That silence tells us something. It speaks to discomfort, it speaks to stigma, and maybe just around these kinds of topics. So no hard feelings, but the ignoring my message, noted, got it, won't ask again. So let's talk a little bit about why this conversation matters, right? So the statistics say, and I mentioned this throughout the different interviews, but the statistics say that men are nearly 4 times as likely to die by suicide than women. Men account for 80% of all suicides. Women attempt more, but men are very successful. Men have shorter life expectancies, largely due to preventable illnesses like heart disease, diabetes, and high blood pressure. They avoid seeking help for mental and physical health issues, often because of stigma or social expectations that they should be tough and tough it out. And we heard some of that in the conversations that we were having. These are not just numbers, these are the men in our lives. These are our fathers and sons and brothers and friends and husbands and boyfriends and cousins and men we work with. They're leaving us too soon because we have not created a culture where it is okay for them to say, "I need help," or "I don't know what to do," or whatever. Another reason why these conversations are important is that there is a global femicide happening, and violence against women and girls is at an all-time high. November 25th was, I think it's called let me make sure, the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women at the UN. And the Secretary General said that a woman is killed by an intimate partner or family member. I wanted to read this so I get it right. Every 10 minutes globally. That is 140 women and girls per day dying at the hands of an intimate partner or family member. That doesn't count the random things that happen from strangers. In 2023, the femicide rate in Africa was at its all-time highest, 2.9 victims per 100,000 members of the female population. And in the United States, 1 in 4 women experience severe intimate partner violence in their lifetime. These aren't just statistics. This is the harm that patriarchy inflicts, not just on women, but on men who perpetuate and remain complicit in these systems. I mean, I said it a number of times during the conversations. When the patriarchy is upheld, when we don't have conversations, when we don't mess with this discussion, men kill themselves, they kill each other, and they kill us as women. And we've got to have conversations to stop this. We've got to break down this system. There is also a role of gender in happiness and longevity. So studies show that men who are married live longer and report higher levels of happiness than their unmarried peers. Okay? Cool, makes sense. Meanwhile, on the other side of the gender spectrum, childless, unmarried women report the highest levels of happiness and they live longer. What does it tell us? Something isn't working in traditional gender roles. Something isn't working for women in traditional gender roles. And quite frankly, women are asking for more divorces than men on the whole. And in some countries, men are starting to say, hey, we should outlaw the ability for women to ask for divorces. That's not the answer. The answer is what is happening within the system of patriarchy that causes us to have this very different view on happiness and longevity. Obviously, in the middle of all of this conversation, we were Movember, kind of unfolded against the backdrop of, I think, deeply concerning political shift. In the U.S., we elected a known misogynist, racist, and an accused sexual assaulter for a president. Globally, we see a rise in conservative politics, and that's typically rolling back women's rights, from abortion bans in the United States being rolled back to attacks on the LGBTQ community, and increasing violence against women all over the world, but specifically in countries like Iran and Afghanistan. In some countries, there are laws being discussed about lowering the marriage age for girls to 9 years old. Are you kidding me? These trends are not only heartbreaking, they are dangerous, and they signal a need for all of us to have these conversations, and especially men to step in, step up, and advocate for a more equitable world. It will be better for you as well. You will live longer. You will have more help. You won't be as angry. You won't be killing yourselves at such high rates. These are conversations we must be having. So, okay, I'll get off my soapbox for a minute. Let me run through some of the things that we learned during these 17 conversations. Number 1, there is a need for safe spaces. Many men said that they rarely, if ever, feel like they have safe spaces for sharing their feelings and their struggles, not with other men and not necessarily with women. That wasn't true of everyone, but it was pretty common in terms of our conversations. The second thing is there is a lot of power in vulnerability. Billy talked about being a girl dad. Alan talked about finding this balance of work and family. But so many of these men talked about how deeper connection with themselves and others actually created more power, more ability to embrace what was going on in their lives, to deal with stress and conflict. And so there is such power for all of us, but specifically for men, in leaning into their vulnerability. We talked a lot about curiosity And Ryan reminded us of the importance of asking great questions and that really look for an understanding. How can we enable more curiosity and less judgment? How can we open doors that fear will sometimes keep closed? How do we make space for men to feel like we're going to listen, not only as women, but for each other among men? And then there were lots of conversations about leadership. So JP and Bill both talked about trust, empathy, and inclusion in leadership. And really, let's take leadership out of only the workplace and talk about it in life. Like, how do you show up as a leader in your life, with your family, in your community? How do we bring that male energy of trust, empathy, and inclusion into the world in a bigger, stronger way that is less violent and less exclusive? And then there was a significant part of our conversation around the role of role models. So many of the men talked about positive role models and the people that they looked up to. Many of them, their dads or granddads, sports heroes. Optimus Prime, we talked about that. So there is a need, a dire need for having role models so that men can shape their values and their actions around positive reinforcement. There is evidence that when men engage in conversations about gender, violence, and mental health, change can happen. Research has shown that men who participate in bystander intervention programs are more likely to challenge harmful behaviors. Men who advocate for gender equity can influence workplace politics, create safer environments, and model healthier behaviors to their younger employees and team members. I think we sometimes get in our heads that conversation is just talk, but it's not. We have to have conversation in order to have action. And the guys I talk to, like, not all of them are the most verbose fellas in the world. Some of them are pretty quiet. There's some introverts in the group for sure. But they all were willing to spend somewhere between 25 and 45 minutes with me talking through these issues because it's important and because they recognized that there is a change that needs to be happening and that change can happen because of conversation. Several times throughout these interviews, I quoted something and I misquoted it, so I want to correct the quote. Margaret Atwood said, "Men are afraid that women will laugh at them, and women are afraid that men will kill them." And I said reject instead of laugh at. I think that it still holds that there is a different kind of fear that men have of dealing with one another and with women than the fear that women have when dealing with men and one another. And I still believe that my hypothesis is correct, that we're not taking each other seriously. We're not taking each other's fear seriously. We're not taking each other's concern seriously. We are looking at it from our own perspective and missing the opportunity to really hear one another and really dig in. I truly, truly think that the only way to bridge the gap is through more dialogue, more empathy, more understanding. So now what do we do? Where do we go from here? We need more conversation. We need more curiosity. We need more connection. And men need each other more than they realize. I'm trying to get choked up. The men I talk to are some of the best men out there. And I walked away smarter, kinder, more compassionate, more open-minded, less judgmental, and less angry at men in general by having these conversations. You need one another more than you realize. You need to reach out to one another more than you realize. And we, as women, we need to listen. We need men to listen to us, and we need to listen to them. Guys, we don't want you to solve things for us, but we want you to understand. And ladies, I think it behooves us to lean into these conversations and listen to them. I'm not asking women to carry any more emotional load than they already do. I'm asking you to be a little bit, crack the door open a tiny bit, and the trustworthy men in your life, hear them out, ask them some questions. So, another giant thank you to the 17 men who talked to me. Thank you for your honesty, for your bravery, your willingness, for diving in. To all of those who listened and supported and donated for Movember, thank you so much. We did not raise very much money, but I got a few donations and we raised a little bit, and a little bit can go a long way. Thank you for believing in this mission and in my little project. Like I said, I am leaving this whole project different and better. It's been a transformative journey for me, and it's been really, really special and important. So thanks for watching and for joining.